Had an interesting experience with a friend where I can't remember exactly what I asked her, but it was something along the lines of, "What are your thoughts on Aboriginals and how we can, Aboriginals of Australia, of course, um, and how we can help with that situation?" Which I guess I should define what is going on with the Australian Aboriginals. Very similar, I think, to the Native Americans of North America. Um, they have been given big plots of land. There's tons and tons of land in Australia. Not that it's great land, but there's tons of it. I feel like a lot of the Aboriginals, you can see some in the cities, kind of living homeless lifestyles, begging lifestyles. Um, but apparently lots of them are out. They're all over Australia, of course, but I get this mindset that a lot of them are like northern Queensland, all these big, they're not reservations, but something similar to that, something where they just got tons of land and the government throws tons of money at them. So they've got housing, they've got food, they got money actually given to them. But that doesn't seem to just work. You can't just throw money at a problem. They are um, basically, there's tons of rampant alcoholism, drug abuse, dysfunctional families, like just domestic violence going on. And I feel like there's definitely a lot of those same issues going on with the Native Americans of North America. But um, other than that, it's just kind of like it's ignored. Uh, you would think living in Australia that you would come into contact with Aboriginals and make friends, and there would be Aboriginals around that you can interact with and talk with and so forth. But they're not really integrated for the most part into the greater Australian population. They're just sort of in their own world, separated, and so there's sort of a disunity. I think you will hear from Australians some pretty sort of speak racist terms, or just sort of like they're kind of seen as not lesser necessarily, but I think it's just a problem that people just want to ignore, to be honest, because there's no obvious solution here. There's no like answer. There's no debates even going on about how we can help the Aboriginal people here. It's kind of just like Australia's decided we'll throw money at it and that's all we can do. And maybe that's true for an Australian government, but I think there are some solutions out there that can be mined and figured out with the Aboriginal people in mind, like as part of that discussion. Absolutely, of course. Um, and so I guess I was just asking my friend who knows something about it and has interacted with Aboriginals a lot more than I have. And So I guess I just sort of asked the question, what are your thoughts? And she had an immediate sort of visceral reaction to me asking the question. And to not give away her name or anything, but yeah, she's not Aboriginal, but she has dark skin, very dark skin, actually, from her background. Um, and again, has worked hand in hand and is friends with even some very famous Aboriginal people, to be honest. And that every Australian knows, just to put it out there. And but for some, I think there was maybe that little bit of dynamic is me as the white guy and her as the dark skinned woman, um, who is adjacent, I guess, in some regards to the Aboriginal people, um, because of skin color, I guess, and being considered a minority. Again, I am Baha'i. My mindset is we're all one human family. And I really don't see races easily, or I just don't put stock in race as easily as most people do, because my first mindset is everybody's a human being just like me, a soul just like me. And So the interesting situation was we're riding in a car and just randomly the idea, or maybe something, I think it was a podcast or somehow the idea popped in my head where I asked her what her thoughts were on how to help with that situation of the Aboriginal people and how they can be better served, or whatever, rectify their situations to be better. And she just immediately had a visceral reaction to me even asking the question. and was very sort of angry and annoyed. And like, how dare you ask that? It was kind of bad attitude. And, um, and then I was sort of backtracking, like, did I say something racist? It was kind of like one of those moments where you feel like you're a white guy and you put your foot in it and you said something that either you didn't mean it to or sounded prejudiced and it just came off the wrong way or something like that, where I was immediately sort of like, what? No, I don't think you understand my tone or whatever. Of course, I was driving. She was in the back seat with her child. And, and I was like, I'm just curious, like, truthfully, like, I want to, just sort of maybe talk about it. There's nothing wrong with that. And, um, and then maybe not even 30 seconds later, she comes back and she goes, yeah, I don't know why I just got so triggered. Like she recognized in herself that her reaction was um, just emotional or triggered, and that she immediately sort of went to the negative place. Like, why it wasn't like you're a jerk. It wasn't like, oh, that's interesting. I'm glad you're asking or thinking about it or looking for an answer or whatever. It was more like, you're a jerk. How do you not know about this? Or it was an interesting situation for sure, and experience. Just to sort of see in her both her immediate being triggered. That was an experience of someone being triggered, um, but also her recognizing that she got very emotional unnecessarily because she knows me. We've been very good friends for many years now, and we both know where our hearts are at and that we're always going to be good people. But it's good for us to sort of bounce off each other. And so I think that's the great thing about being with somebody who's a great friend that you can really trust. They'll always be there when you do stupid stuff, call you out and put it in their perspective, but you always remain friends despite having disagreements or difference of perspectives. And she and I have always had sort of difference of perspectives, and we have great talks and discussions, and it's never stopped our friendship. And so she happened to call this morning back, and we had again another great conversation. She's one of those people that's just such a place of solace, God first, but it's always great to have those friends to bounce ideas off of or just discuss. She's a number 2 on the Enneagram called the Helper. Those are people that you actively sort of in your brain go, oh, I can talk to her. She will be a source of comfort and somebody I can discuss things with and feel comfortable with and give just nice support and help and maybe a nice perspective. So when I've had my challenges with relationships in particular, um, she's always been literally one of the first people on my brain to call, her and maybe my aunt, Melanie, and then maybe my sisters, but they're all in the US. My sister's my mother, so it's hard to call my American friends. So here in Australia, it's always going to be my aunt and this girl. Um, so it's fascinating. So the debate I have in my head now with going back to the Aboriginals is, what is the right approach, to helping them? Um, one of the topics that she and I discussed on that chat was just, we got to get drugs and alcohol out. But now that's like a freedom that you're taking away from them. They don't have the freedom to have alcohol just like everybody else in Australia has. Um, and yet that that demographic, that DNA type, is way more susceptible, it seems, to alcoholism. It's not because their lives are just horrible, which is true, but I think it's like some people just take a drug and they're addicted from day one. Others can just do it in moderation. I think maybe the DNA, the white genetics, and others, of course, are way more able to just like alcohol and beer and stuff like that, meat or whatever they drank in the past. It was always part of their lifestyle, and they drink it as part of their meal, and then they go to bed and so forth. And they party at certain times of the year, and it's fine. And then, but they're not. It doesn't control and then honestly destroy their life. Whereas I think the Native Americans and the Aboriginals, and I'm sure there's other populations out there that have similar situation where they just were never used to it. It wasn't something that's part of their big past that their bodies adjusted to. Um, and so alcohol is easy, much more addictive and destroying of their life. So it's like, can you say, oh well, this group of people just cannot have alcohol in their lives? We have to take it out. Of course, drugs, same thing. Drugs are also there. Those are definitely legal. So the law can kind of go in there and do its best to stop that from happening. But alcohol isn't illegal. And so it's at underage. And yet I feel like it's just a personal view that the Native Americans, the Aboriginals in Australia would benefit for just not having alcohol in their communities at all. Like it just wasn't an option. It wasn't sold in their stores. Um, and then it becomes like a bootleg situation where you get guys smuggling alcohol into the areas, and that would be very hard to regulate and stop. And that can, of course, cost a lot more because of the illegality of it and the risk factor that goes along with it. So I guess it's just an interesting debate. Like, if we had the ability to pull alcohol completely out of the Aboriginal communities and areas that they live, um, morally, would that be right? Because we are helping them, but we're also taking away freedom. That's the interesting debate there.